Prologue, September 19th, 1918. The earth trembled under the weight of thunderous explosions as the 27th American Division charged into the merciless fray. The air was choked with dust and desperation, and the deafening sound of artillery fire drowned out the cries of bravery and fear that echoed across the battlefield. Among the valiant soldiers was Corporal Connor Lance, his heart pounding in his chest as he ran alongside his comrades, each step bringing them closer to the enemy's line. The adrenaline coursed through his veins, numbing the fear that gnawed at his resolve. He knew the stakes were high, but he had faith in the brotherhood of soldiers fighting by his side. Yet, as they pressed forward, hope collided with the grim reality of war. The enemy's defenses were merciless, and the barrage of gunfire cut through the American forces with ruthless precision. Men fell like leaves in autumn, their dreams of victory shattered in the chaos. In the midst of the carnage, Connor witnessed the faces of his fallen comrades, their lifeless eyes staring back at him with haunting accusation. The weight of heavy losses bore down on him, and despair threatened to overwhelm his spirit. Yet, he knew he couldn't falter. He had to press on. As the charge pressed forward, Connor found himself separated from his unit. The sounds of battle grew more distant, leaving him in an eerie silence. He ran harder, pushing past the pain and exhaustion, desperate to rejoin his brothers in arms. But as he rounded a corner, the devastating truth confronted him. He was alone amidst the enemy ranks. Panic seized his heart, and his instincts screamed at him to find cover. He sought refuge behind a crumbling wall, the sound of bullets whizzing past him like angry hornets. Connor peered over the wall, watching in horror as the charge he once bravely led dwindled to a few scattered souls. The battlefield painted a gruesome portrait of sacrifice and loss. The once mighty force now lay broken and defeated, a testament to the unforgiving nature of war. Amidst the fallen, he spotted the lifeless body of his closest friend, Private Jameson. Grief gripped his chest, but there was no time to mourn. With tears in his eyes and sorrow in his heart, he resolved to survive for his fallen comrades, to carry their memory and sacrifice with him. In the distance, enemy soldiers advanced, a relentless force marching towards him. Yet, as death loomed, a newfound sense of clarity washed over Connor. He would fight not for victory, but for survival, for the chance to bear witness to the sacrifices of his fallen comrades and tell their stories. With valor in his heart and a fierce will to live, Connor pressed on. He would strive to live to be the lone survivor amidst the wreckage of war. But it would all be in vain. In a desperate and foolish attempt would charge the enemy's position out of some desperate attempt to survive. The enemy would surround him, and a flamethrower would light him ablaze. Amidst the chaos and devastation, as the enemy encircled him, Corporal Connor Lance faced an agonizing demise. With his last defiant breath, he braved the flames as a searing blaze engulfed his fallen body, leaving behind only ashes to bear witness to his sacrifice. Chapter 1. Ashes of No Man's Land, September 20th, 1918. In the aftermath of a harrowing battle, the 27th American Division bore the weight of heavy losses. Among the fallen was Corporal Connor Lance, his life extinguished on the battlefield. His body lay like a poignant symbol of sacrifice, burning like a celestial beacon, outshining even the stars in the colorless darkness. The wind, a mournful messenger, carried his ashes, once filled with hopes and dreams, across the vast expanse of no man's land. It served as a haunting reminder of mankind's greatest hell. Amidst the unspeakable horrors of war, an overlooked tragedy unfolded silently, the devastation of countless trees and vegetation. Amongst the destruction stood a false, fabricated tree, ingeniously designed to conceal its true purpose. Crafted by skilled hands, it harbored a secret compartment containing a sniper den, serving as a refuge for a man named Matthias. The artificial tree blended seamlessly with its natural surroundings, becoming an unlikely sanctuary amidst the chaos of war. From his vantage point, Matthias observed the battlefield, a silent sentinel poised to protect his fellow soldiers. Having witnessed the horrors of the event, he found relief in knowing that the moment had passed. As the sun arose, it cast a solemn light upon a land that resembled more of a corpse than a valley. Clutching a weathered diary, Matthias grappled with an impossible task: to capture the indescribable horrors of war in mere words. The German language boasted over 300,000 words, but none seemed adequate to convey the experiences. Deep scars etched on his face, sunken eyes burdened by suffering, and tattered clothing stained with the dirt of battle. His eyes mirrored anguish and torment, reflecting a man teetering on the edge of sanity. With a heavy sigh, he closed the worn diary, fearing it might be his last time putting pen to paper. The final sentence read, "Men are the worst kind of monster, for they are the only monster that can hide behind innocent faces." On that day, the cold pierced Matthias's bones, far colder than the season should have allowed. Melancholic rain drizzled from the leaden sky, adding a somber soundtrack to the desolate landscape. Within Matthias's makeshift dwelling, discarded debris and empty bottles created a cluttered space that sometimes served as a refuge for fellow soldiers seeking an escape from their relentless duties. Their presence transformed his den into a makeshift tavern, but Matthias resisted the temptation to join them in drinking, keeping the last promise he could make to himself. He found solace in knowing that the scent of alcohol masked the sickening stench of decay and death that pervaded the battlefield. A small light from the observation portion of his post offered a feeble glow, belying the surprisingly spacious interior that could even accommodate an entire turret post. It had been meticulously crafted to stay hidden from any prying eyes, leading up to the top. Placing the journal into a worn bag filled with personal mementos, Matthias's eyes fell upon a cherished photograph of his son. The innocence radiating from the young boy's image stood in stark contrast to the grim reality surrounding Matthias. A fleeting smile crossed his face, a tender memory that he held close to his heart, even in the midst of this unforgiving war. Yet the smile quickly faded, and with a heavy heart, he knew it was time to return to his deadly work. The wind quickened its pace outside the den, as if trying to taunt him, urging him to once again become a killer. But as Matthias stepped back into the shadows of his sanctuary, he felt the weight of responsibility descend upon his shoulders. It was his duty to endure this relentless chaos, his duty to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The sniper den became both his protector and his prison, a hidden haven amidst the demons that haunted his every step on the treacherous path of war. But it was within this sanctuary that he could also find moments of respite, as he retreated into the cherished memories of his son and the promise of a better world beyond the battlefield. And so, as the wind carried on its mournful song outside, Matthias steeled himself for the night ahead. He knew that he was not just fighting against the enemy, but also against the darkness within himself, a darkness that sought to consume him with each life he took. Amidst the ruins, he remained a lone figure, a silent sentinel concealed from the world, his resolve unwavering, and his heart burdened with the weight of war's unspeakable horrors. In moments like this, Matthias couldn't help but wonder which of war's horrors was the most unbearable. Hunger and trench foot plagued him physically, but the ceaseless carnage of the Great War weighed heaviest on his mental well-being. Witnessing the industrialized human slaughter time and again chipped away at his spirit, fragment by fragment. Perched high in his sniper den, Matthias found temporary safety from the rain that flooded the trenches of no man's land. He took stock of his clothing and belongings, noting the bullet-riddled jacket, a grim reminder of its previous owner's fate. Assessing his physical condition, he observed his scarred and blistered hands, evidence of countless moments when he had clawed his way out of the damned trenches. As his hands began to shake, the weight of the task at hand washed over him. With a steady gaze at his weathered silver watch, he drew a deep breath and stood against the wall, right next to an ammo crate containing his rifle, clean, well-kept, and in better condition than he was, as his mental catalogue confirmed. Once more, he prepared himself for the grim duty that lay ahead. The rain intensified, sounding like metal bullets hitting the roof of his den. He slowly reached for his rifle, embracing its odd comfort. It was the only constant in his chaotic existence and his only true friend in this world. Raising the scope to his eye, Matthias began his solemn surveillance of the area, tirelessly searching for potential targets. The desolate landscape before him appeared hauntingly unchanged since his last survey, but the sight of mangled corpses, both enemy and comrade, always left him hollow, a void carved deep within his soul. Many of the faces he saw were once friends, now lost to the brutality of war. Others belonged to his foes, their final expressions etched in his memory as he took them away from this world. The wreckage of barbed wire, destroyed equipment, blistered trees and broken bridges, along with every conceivable contraption invented in man's futile attempt to combat modernity and the industrialized slaughter that accompanied it, stood as a stark testament to humanity's failure to uphold decency. Regardless of the propaganda, he always felt like a monster at the end of the day. He felt like the unofficial Grim Reaper. In the midst of this harrowing existence, Matthias clung to his humanity, even as war sought to strip it away. His diary became his refuge, a place where he tried to preserve the memories of happier times, of laughter and love, lest they be swallowed whole by the darkness of war. But deep down, he knew that with each pull of the trigger, he was losing a part of himself, becoming more and more entangled in the web of violence and despair. As the rain poured down, mingling with the tears he could not shed, Matthias continued his watchful vigil. Even in this dreadful landscape, there were moments of fleeting beauty. The sun breaking through the clouds, the rare sound of distant laughter from the soldiers below, or the gentle rustling of a surviving tree. These small glimmers of humanity kept him going, reminding him that amidst the horrors of war, there was still something worth fighting for, something worth preserving beyond the relentless chaos of the battlefield. As the war raged on, Matthias couldn't help but question how much longer he could endure. The burden of being an instrument of death weighed heavily on his conscience, and he yearned for the day when the guns would fall silent and the winds of peace would carry away the ashes of war's devastation. Until then, he remained in his sniper den, a silent sentinel amidst the cacophony of destruction, grappling with his own humanity as he unwillingly witnessed the horrors of mankind's darkest chapter. An hour passed as Matthias considered taking a break from his relentless surveillance. However, his attention was abruptly captivated by an unexpected sight amidst the vast battlefield. A lone rat emerged from a hole in the ground, pitiful in its search for sustenance and survival. This particular rat, aged and weakened, hobbled on 3 legs, resonating with Matthias in an inexplicable way. There was an odd hint of innocence in its presence, though he quickly dismissed any sympathy for such a creature. Only men had the right for sympathy, but the war began to change his mind. Intrigued, Matthias followed the rat's movements through the lens of his scope, momentarily diverting his mind from the horrors of war. The creature's limping and tenacious struggle against the unforgiving terrain fascinated him, offering a humbling reminder of the relentless determination present even in the smallest of beings. He found an odd sense of comfort in observing its survival instincts. The rat deftly maneuvered past various obstacles, causing Matthias to contemplate how rats seemed to endure and adapt better than any man ever could. He almost found himself rooting for it until it led him towards something indistinguishable from his vantage point. Slowly the rat guided Matthias toward what seemed to be a broken piece of wood. He moved his head back from the lens, trying to distinguish what it was. "What did you find, my little friend?" he asked, aiming once more at the object. As it came into clearer view, it revealed itself to be a mangled face, partially blown off, belonging to a corpse. Matthias recognized the man. It was someone he had shot before, who had died with an odd sense of happiness. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. An eerie smile appeared on the dead man's face, a long grin stretching from ear to ear. In a haunting tone, the corpse uttered, "You're quite the shot," playfully winking at him. Then the remaining eye fell out of its socket. Time felt as though it stopped for Matthias. He couldn't even hear, and he stood still until he finally registered what happened. Panic gripped him more deeply than the cold, causing him to recoil as though he were about to be shot. He hit the ground with a thud, trembling and struggling to comprehend what had just happened. His hand trembled, releasing the rifle as it slipped from his grasp. Battling to regain control over himself, he fought against the disorienting emptiness around him. Gradually, Matthias managed to steady himself, his voice barely a whisper as he muttered, "That couldn't be real." His words carried a sense of defeat and fragility, as if his spirit had been worn down to its breaking point. Despite his mind's resistance, an insatiable need to confirm the reality of what he had witnessed compelled him forward. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Matthias peered through the scope once more, desperately searching for the rat. The man was gone, and there, alone in its stark isolation, far removed from any living presence, was the rat. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips, yet his fixation on the rat remained unwavering. A laugh escaped his lips, as if he had just heard the most hilarious joke of his life. The feeling washed over him, and he was simultaneously relieved and terrified, wondering if he might be succumbing to madness. The rat resumed its movement, and Matthias, his voice filled with a strange mixture of curiosity and frustration, called out, "Where are you going, you little rascal?" The rat continued its journey with a newfound urgency, and Matthias's mind wrestled with the possibility that his little companion might lead him further into the depths of his own unraveling sanity. Nevertheless, driven by a need for confirmation, he continued to follow its movements, his eyes fixated on the rat's path. The rat navigated through a maze of objects, discarded debris, scattered weapons, and lifeless corpses, until it finally stumbled upon a peculiar object of indiscernible shape. Initially, Matthias struggled to make out its nature. Realizing that his lens was smudged, he pulled back, retrieved a clean rag from his pocket, meticulously wiped the lens, took a deep breath, and resumed his search for the rat. A few moments passed until Matthias found the rat once more, fixing his gaze on a startling struggle unfolding before him. Gradually the object came into focus, forever etched into his memory, haunting his dreams for years. The object in question was a human eye, its green hue mirroring his own. Shock paralyzed him as the audacious rat sank its teeth into the eye, a grotesque scene unfolding. Panic surged through Matthias, causing him to recoil, his breath rapid and shallow, overwhelmed by waves of nausea. Struggling to regain composure, he stumbled to his feet, his trembling hands betraying his inner turmoil. He fought against the rising urge to vomit, his own life flashing before his eyes, his grasp on reality slipping. In that desperate moment, he pressed the rifle against his forehead, feeling that ending his torment through self-destruction was the only way out. However, before he could pull the trigger, a voice unexpectedly cut through the chaos, offering an alternative path. "I have a better idea if you seek a definitive end," the voice echoed, breaking Matthias from his trance. Startled and broken from his trance, Matthias swiftly turned around, coming face to face with a dark figure lurking at the bottom of his den. In the darkness, all he could discern was a hand ominously clutching a pipe. The sudden intrusion jolted Matthias, sending a shiver down his spine. From the depths of the shadows, a cold, commanding yet oddly charming voice pierced the silence, remarking that such an ending would be underwhelming. In response, the figure's other hand emerged, producing a match that ignited the pipe, casting an eerie glow. This revealed the features of Matthias's commanding officer, Heydrich. A man in his 50s, Heydrich exuded an unsettling sense of youthfulness and vitality, his distinguished appearance accentuated by a meticulously groomed handlebar mustache, sleek glasses, piercing blue eyes, and a sharply defined jawline. Yet beneath this facade of cheerfulness and composure, Matthias sensed a concealed veil, shielding the true emotions within Heydrich. A wicked smile crept across Heydrich's face, accompanied by a chilling remark. With a puff of smoke from his tobacco, he ascended the steps, each footfall resonating through the den. The space was ample enough to accommodate the two men, but its vastness seemed to close in as Heydrich approached. Meanwhile, the wind outside intensified, howling with a sense of foreboding, while the rain cascaded with increased ferocity, as if the elements themselves feared this man. Breaking the silence, Heydrich's voice cut through the charged atmosphere. "It would be quite the tragedy if all the time and resources the enemy invested in trying to kill you resulted in you being the one to pull the trigger," he said, his words oozing sinister amusement and sadistic pleasure. "Imagine the burden your family would bear, raising funds for a gravestone that reads, 'Taken by madness and his rifle.' Quite the legacy to leave behind for your son, wouldn't you agree, Matthias?" Matthias's trembling hand gradually lowered the rifle from his forehead, his breaths growing deeper and steadier as he summoned courage. Meeting Heydrich's icy gaze head-on, Matthias couldn't contain the smouldering anger in his voice. "Perhaps, Commander, this rifle would find a far more fitting purpose when aimed at you," he asserted, his words pulsing with solemn conviction. "Our weary men deserve respite from your ruthless commands. No more suicidal and worthless attacks just to feed your pride. It would be a dream come true to silence your orders." Matthias felt that this day had been nothing but a dream, but whether it felt real or not, he would gladly put a bullet in his head. Another puff of smoke emerged from Heydrich's pipe, hazing the room. A broad, almost maniacal grin spread across Heydrich's face as he confidently countered Matthias's threat. "Save your bullet, my friend. You won't find it of much use against me," he declared, his voice dripping with sinister confidence. Confusion etched its way into Matthias's expression as he questioned Heydrich's cryptic words. "And why is that?" he inquired, his voice laced with both curiosity and apprehension. For a fleeting moment, a hint of sadness flickered across Heydrich's visage before he revealed his unsettling truth. "Because I came here to die anyway," he confessed, his tone heavy with resignation. His gaze shifted to a nearby scabbard, piquing Matthias's curiosity mingled with horror. "You're leading a charge," Matthias deduced, his mind racing to comprehend the implications of Heydrich's words. Heydrich's hand gravitated towards the scabbard, the weight of the decision apparent in his contemplative gaze. "Consider this, Matthias. It would be more honorable to have your name etched on a gravestone as a fallen hero on the battlefield than be remembered as a traitor," Heydrich suggested, his voice laced with calculated persuasion. "You might even get the chance to take a shot at the very enemies who yearn for your demise more fervently than I do." As Heydrich spoke, a distant sound grew louder and more thunderous. It wasn't just thunder. A momentary silence enveloped the pair, their surroundings filled with the echoes of the mysterious sound, now closer and more intense. Matthias gradually loosened his grip on the rifle, his mind wrestling with conflicting emotions amidst the chaos. The deafening explosion nearby shattered his thoughts, its blast jolting his senses. As the smoke and dust settled, the disarray of his surroundings swayed in an unsettling manner, the blurred edges of reality adding to the disorienting aftermath of the explosion. The ringing in his ears subsided, replaced by a throbbing ache that pulsed through his head, reminding him of the gravity of the situation. Blinking rapidly, Matthias fought to regain his bearings, his gaze sweeping over the devastated landscape. The ground beneath him felt unstable, each step becoming an arduous task. Despite the disorientation and pain, he clung tightly to his rifle, his grip unyielding. The enemy had begun shelling their trench. The gravity of the moment weighed heavily on his shoulders, his decision now more crucial than ever. Matthias's vision slowly sharpened, the chaos around him coming into focus. Emerging from the swirling smoke and debris like a phantom, Heydrich gradually materialized before him, his presence exuding a chilling certainty amidst the turmoil. Matthias's eyes widened as he took in the sight of his once lovely home now blown in half, the destruction a stark reminder of the brutality of war. Heydrich, dusting off his hat and bearing a faint smile, seemed strangely unfazed, an unsettling laugh escaping his lips as he observed the relentless bombardment. "They're improving with each shot," he murmured, his statement carrying an eerie blend of admiration and amusement. Matthias saw the burnt picture of his son on the ground, the one possession that had helped him persevere through this war, now left charred. A surge of anger coursed through Matthias, fueled by the desire for revenge. The feeling of injustice took hold of his senses, his gaze locking onto Heydrich with an unnatural fury. "Are you truly leading the charge?" Matthias inquired, his voice barely audible over the deafening cacophony of explosions. Heydrich's response held a grim resolve. "I fully intend to be the first to be shot," he affirmed, his words belying a deeper struggle within him. As Matthias scrutinized his commanding officer's changing expressions, he realized that Heydrich mirrored the desperation of a man trapped in a treacherous struggle, rather than embodying the facade of a heartless killer. Lowering his rifle slightly, Matthias offered a grim smile in return, the bitterness of his situation mingling with a begrudging acceptance. "I suppose officially I'll die a hero," he conceded, his voice tinged with resignation as he accepted the inevitable. Heydrich's cold gaze met him with a wicked glimmer, acknowledging the shared fate they had sealed. "That's the spirit," he affirmed, sealing their grim pact with a gaze that only a devil could bestow upon his subordinate amidst the swirling chaos.